There are a lot of questions on apical impulse. There are MCQs on apical impulse. There's a NEET SS separate questions on apical impulse. So if the apical impulse is displaced laterally, if the apical impulse is displaced laterally or inferiorly, what do you think? Obviously, I think cardiac enlargement. Now there are two questions. If the apical impulse is downwards and outwards, then you will think of left ventricular hypertrophy, downwards and outwards. And if the apical impulse is just outwards alone, you will think of right ventricular hypertrophy. So just outwards is RVH, down and out is LVH. I'll repeat again. Remember forever in the 70 years of your life, remember this. If the apical impulse is just outwards, it is RVH. Down and out, it is LVH. Number one. Number two, very nice question. What are the non-cardiac causes of shift to left? Apical impulse basically has shifted to left, no cardiomegaly. What are the other causes? Very nice question. Yes, very good. If I have a kyphoscoliosis, photographic memory, all my lectures, please focus on the photos. Like in my whole life journey, I have only learned from photos, and I have realized for the fact that photographic memory plays such a huge role. And with photographic memory, if you speak also and look at the photo and speak about it, you will 100% you will remember. Okay, so the non-cardiac causes of shifting of the apical impulse are if the patient has a kyphoscoliosis, if the patient has some chest deformity known as pectus excavatum. So these two very beautiful causes we have, non-cardiac causes, kyphoscoliosis, pectus excavatum. What are the apical impulse shifting to right? Can I say dextrocardia? Have you heard of Carter syndrome, where automatically the heart only is to the right side? If heart only is to the right side, automatically the apical impulse will shift to the right. In condition like dextrocardia, Carter syndrome, or congenital diaphragmatic hernia, because all the the intestine have gone up, so it has caused this mediastinal shift over here. So apical impulse also has shift. So very nice points. Very basic but very nice. If the examiner will ask you basis, tell me the causes of apical impulse shifting to the right. Number one, dextrocardia, which is seen in Carter syndrome. Then you have congenital diaphragmatic hernia, you have congenital lobar emphysema or CCAM, congenital cystic adenomatoid malformation. I'll repeat again: dextrocardia, Carter syndrome, congenital diaphragmatic hernia is all CCC. The congenital diaphragmatic hernia, congenital lobar emphysema, and congenital cystic adenomatoid malformations. That's it. Okay. What are the various types of apical impulse? You have this heaving type, you have this bounding type. So number one, absent. Beautiful answer. Absent. You just put a stethoscope and there is no what you call apical impulse. Why? What are cause of absent? Behind the rib. If the apical impulse is behind the rib, naturally, you will not hear it. Obesity. If the patient is very obese, then also you can have a masking of this apical impulse. Number one, behind the rib. So behind the rib, obesity, and yes, I was thinking about extracardia only, Carter syndrome. There automatically the apical impulse over here will be absent. Dextrocardia, behind the rib, and obesity. And when there's too much of fluid, massive pericardial effusion, you will have the apical impulse shifting to the absent apical impulse. Okay, so very importantly that you should know. Okay, I'll repeat again. What are the types of apex impulse? If the apex impulse or apical impulse is absent, number one, either it is behind the rib. Number two, either the patient is obese. Number three, pericardial effusion. Number four is dextrocardia. Very easy. Where do you see hyperdynamic apical impulse? Yes, this is important point. So hyperdynamic apical impulse means very easy, when heart is doing too much of work in conditions like high cardiac output states, like ASD, VSD, PDA, all this. So remember, PDA, VSD, aortic regurgitation, mitral regurgitation. When too much of extra work is there, then automatically you're going to have a hyperdynamic apical impulse, or even a thin chest wall. That also a logical point. If the chest wall is too thin, a very malnourished patient, and you're auscultating, so tuck, like hyperdynamic thing you will have. So number one, thin chest wall. Number two, high cardiac output states like ASD, VSD, PDA. Then next we have tapping. Where do you see tapping apical impulse, and where do you see heaving apical impulse? So tapping you will see in a case of mitral stenosis. This is the fourth chamber structure of the heart. So this valve basically between the left atrium and the left ventricle, you have this mitral wall. In mitral stenosis, you're going to have a very important, you're going to have a heaving type of apical impulse, tapping type of apical impulse. T for tapping, T for mitral. Mitral has a T, so tapping apical impulse you see in mitral stenosis, and heaving apical impulse you see in conditions like aortic stenosis and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So aortic, so again this is the four chambered structure of the heart, and this side is the aorta. So in aortic stenosis you're going to have a heaving, and in mitral stenosis you're going to have a tapping apical impulse. Apart from this, so inspection over palpation. Palpation, you spoke about the apical impulse, and then you're going to speak about precordial pulsations. Now precordial pulsations, very importantly, now there are various pulsations. We all know that the right second intercostal space is the aortic area, left second intercostal space is the pulmonary area, then we have this mid-clavicular line, fourth left intercostal space is the mitral area, and at the xiphoid we have the tricuspid area. So aortic, pulmonary, mitral, tricuspid. Finish. Now how will you check for the systolic pulsation in the pulmonary left second intercostal area? How will you elicit the precordial pulsations? So left second, no, put your finger on the left second intercostal space, so you will feel the precordial pulsations over there. So in the pulmonary area, to feel that, you're going to palpate by placing the pad of the index finger at the second left intercostal space to look for precordial pulsations. Okay, and if you're tuck, if you're hearing something strange or feeling something strange, basically it's the pulmonary area. That means the patient is having pulmonary artery dilatation. So precordial pulsations, if are there in the left second intercostal space, because it is a pulmonary area, the patient can land up into, or the patient can have a pulmonary artery dilatation. Next important point we have is very nice, suprasternal, photographic, suprasternal pulsation. So why for suprasternal pulsation? Number one, how do you do it and what is the interpretation? Nothing, you palpate the suprasternal notch with the pad of the index finger like that, and then what do you do? If there's a tuck like that, some pulsations are there, that is aortic regurgitation. So pulmonary issues are there in the pulmonary area, and we have suprasternal pulsation you see in aortic regurgitation. One more, aortic regurgitation, patent ductus arteriosus, or even aorta, basically aortic problem, coarctation of aorta, aortic regurgitation. See, some things you have to cram, okay, and some things you have to understand like that, okay. Now next important point we have is epigastric. This one, epigastric pulsation, tuck like that. So epigastric pulsation, remember this side we have the right ventricle. So right ventricle is touching the epigastric over here. So epigastric pulsation you will see in right ventricular overload conditions. What are the right ventricular over? So yeah, in the right ventricular overload conditions. So number one, apex impulse over. Number two, precordial pulsation in various areas, left second, suprasternal and epigastric. Then third, we have parasternal heave. Parasternal heave. Now it's very easy. Parasternal, I'll show you. Okay, parasternum. This is the sternum. Photo. See na? This is the photo, and the one she is putting the finger over here. This is the parasternal area. Heave, any kind of pulsations. So observe the left parasternal region. First you observe for visible pulsations. If everything looks okay, then you place your finger pads on the intercostal space and feel for pulsations. Right? This is how you do a parasternal heave. If you have a cardiac examination, examiner will at least ask you a theoretical, how do you look for parasternal heave? Parasternal heave is like a feeling. Number one, sir, at the left parasternal area, first I will see for visible pulsations. If it is not there, I'll place my finger on the intercostal space like that, like this, and feel for pulsations. And then I will place the ulnar border of the right hand and record for any thirst or heave is there. So I'm gonna put a ulnar border of the right hand. I think we have a photo over here. That's it. So we're gonna have put the ulnar, this only, no? Yeah, ulnar border of the right hand. That's how you do. So physically, the first thing you did what? First you put your finger pads like that, then you put the ulnar border. Did you understand? So first